In this video, we get extra nerdy and explore the curve analysis tool, also called the curvature graph. First, let's put this tool into context. It's part of a whole suite of curve and surface analysis tools located primarily under the Analysis or Analyze toolbar. Now, we've previously discussed the command geometric continuity, or gcon. This is simply a visual method of doing the same exact thing. We'll start off by analyzing this very first demo curve number 1. This was built by several separate segments and joined here at one end by a straight line. Let's select it and go to the command Analyze, Curve, Curvature Graph On. Now you may not notice there is some visual display here, but it's white, which is the same color as my background. So you want to definitely go ahead and pick a color right now so this thing pops out. Let's try a kind of a lime green. So the other thing you may look out for is the display scale. A lot of times this will default to 100, which is really tight to the line and not very useful. I'm typically up around 120 or a little bit higher. That seems to be the sweet spot. Now the density is the number of straight lines or curves coming off. So those can be useful. So just dial that in to suit your own taste. Now I'm going to zoom in here. We can leave this parked. So let's explore what the curvature graph is telling us and what's happening at different spots. Now down here at the straight segment, we have no graph at all. So if you think about it, if we're measuring curvature, we have 0 at a straight line. So that does make sense. Now we're coming around and we have a sharp turn here. This means that these were joined, and it's typically with a G1 or lower level. So that's probably a fillet on there on this end right here, this rounded part. Now the rest looks pretty good, and the curvature graph is also telling you how quickly it's changing or banking. So let's kind of summarize what is happening with this curvature graph. It's visually displaying the amount of curvature in the curve that generated the graph. This distance away indicates the curvature amount. So a sharper curve will push the graph farther away. You can also think of a roller coaster. As you go around a faster turn, you're going to have more force. And conversely, if you have a straight line, that has no curvature, so there's no graph. Let's close this and move on to the next example. This is a single curve, so it was not joined at all. It was drawn all as one piece. I'm also going to access this up here in the command line by right-clicking, and there's the last command I accessed right there waiting. Now the scale here looks a little bit too high, so we can dial that back down to make it a little more useful. And as I zoom in, we'll notice that this top point of the curvature graph is continuous. It doesn't have any of those jumps we saw, even though there are some sharp points. That's actually not an issue. So they shouldn't have a jump, but they do pull away on the tight turns, as we talked about. And as the curve changes direction, the graph will jump from side to side. So this is as should be expected. So where this can get really fun and interesting is we're going to do some dynamic editing. I'm going to go ahead and select this curve here and also turn the curvature graph on. And I'm also going to change the scale here. And with the control points, you can use F10 or this button right here. Notice the curvature graph jumps from side to side as the control points switch sides. So I can move that over. You can have a lot of fun tweaking these and seeing what happens. Now there's a situation over here I want to call your attention to. Looks like this was joined by 2 endpoints. And even though the G value was acceptable, there still is a bit of a jump. So in the past, I've recommended you can delete these points as long as they don't change the curve too much. And that should smooth things out. Let's try that. Hit delete. It actually didn't get much better. This is probably because the G value here was a little higher than I guessed. So it affected another point or two away from that edge. So I'd also delete the next points down the line. And that should clean it up completely. The rest of this should maintain that continuity here. It doesn't look like we have any problems at all. Let's turn the control points off and the curvature graph dialog. So this type of evaluation is fairly nerdy and may not be used very often or at all, but the existence of these tools highlights the importance of curve quality. and will make you a better 3D modeler.